Guys, I have been wrong yet again, but this time, this takes the absolute cake. This video is going to cover something that I consider the most important thing I have so far covered in crypto. I've said this multiple times before about different things. I've said, hey, this is the most important thing. You have to look at this, do this first when you're researching. No, this takes the cake. When you are investing in a cryptocurrency, you've got to do what I'm going to tell you today, because if you don't, you seriously run the risk of not making any money at all. It's not a trick, it's not a tactic, it's none of that sort of crap. This is serious stuff. And so if you consider yourself a serious profitable investor, whether that's someone who just likes to pretty much buy what everyone tells them, or if you're someone like myself who does your own research, you have to at least do this every time you research a project. And I was in the wrong simply because I never told you guys about this as much as I should. I'm not going to make that same mistake again. I'm telling you guys this every single time I review a new project forever. That's it. So let's head over to the screen here and have a look about what I'm waffling on about, right? So again, guys, I've been dead wrong about something that's super important to get right. And if we continue to get this wrong, it definitely will kill our price predictions and even what we consider a good project. You'll find that a lot of the projects that come across sort of your targets now, and you apply this, you'll go, my God, like there's no point in me buying this project. It's just like, it might be a good project, don't get me wrong. But if it doesn't do this correctly, it's just not a good buy. It's as simple as that, because, oh, well, I'm going to get to why in a second, hint, hint, because in that case, it's a utility token. Give me a second to clarify. Do not get caught up thinking the bad side of this. And again, I'm going to clarify what that is. And you might be thinking, why is this guy freaking out so much about this sort of stuff? Well, again, I have your best interests at heart. No matter what anyone else, whatever random say in the comment section, the way I see it, I'm talking to myself a few years ago. So I want you guys to make the right mistake, choices, not the right mistakes, because essentially we might not get another chance after 2025 to make life-changing wealth, right? So how many of us at some point have wondered to ourselves, hey, why isn't our project going up in price, past a nice big pump from a partnership or something important? For example, Hedera. Why is it processing 1.5 billion transactions a month and also climbing, but it's not skyrocketing? Or in the case of Chainlink, this might even be a better example. How is Chainlink the primary oracle of Web3 and has been since inception, yet it's not moving? Matter of fact, the last 12 months has pretty much moved sideways. Kyron, why? Why? It's used in everything. Well, this is going to answer that question. And again, it's important because we don't want to find ourselves buying a project that won't actually benefit from its intended use case. Let me explain. What's the magic 2 words? Supply shock, period, right? Or in other words, how much a project can shoot up / react from demand. Now, before, again, anyone thinks to themselves, oh God, this sounds boring, or I'm just going to click off this video. Hey, be my guest, click off. But I'm telling you, everyone at every skill level, no matter what you look at for DYOR, you have to apply this. You have to apply this. There's no in between, right? And it's not demand from investors buying and selling the tokens, right? It's actual demand from the intended markets be using the token or the network or the service. Well, we're not talking about you and I buying the project here, like in a meme case, like, oh, maybe I'm going to buy this because everyone else might buy this, right? It's a meme type thing. No. This is for like those projects you're actually investing in to make some big money in, right? So again, like HBAR, QNT, and Link in this case. So what's their target markets? Well, in HBAR's case, you've got supply chain, IoT, audit logs, QNT, economies, like entire markets. You got maps, which are the applications or the dApps that build on top of Quant. You got blockchain to blockchain Link. You got VRFs, you got Oracle service itself, and also now interoperability as well, right? So you have all these different things, but you have to find the intended markets for your favorite projects. Whatever they are, you got to figure out what they're trying to disrupt, because this is going to play into it, okay? And that's not hard to find. Just go on their homepage. It's very, very simple, right? So if these cryptocurrencies hypothetically are adopted, then they need to be able to absorb the demand from these markets. This is essentially what we speculate on when we invest in them. If you're investing in a project because you hope it pumps from a meme coin type thing or something like that, fine, I respect that. But most of us, at least myself, we're investing to speculate that they're going to actually disrupt the markets they want to disrupt. That's the whole point of how they can blow up so much, right? So think about it like this. If they have a kick-ass product and are adopted by lots of big enterprises, like let's say Amazon, for example, but they don't have a way their token can be removed, this is the keywords, removed from supply, then we cannot expect the price to go up from high usage. We basically will just be simply stuck holding a utility token. I want you to say that again, right? I want to repeat that. Holding a utility token. If the token is purely utility, and a lot of the projects I buy are utility tokens, but they truly are in the sense that they aren't absorbing all that demand and getting them out of circulation. Then we literally are just buying a utility token and it's freaking pointless to hold. Literally, it's pointless to hold, right? So here's an example with quant. Okay, this is going to go over what I'm kind of talking about here. There's 3 things we have to actually find in this case when you're researching. Again, guys, I'm going to try to go over this as fast as I can. But the first thing we're going to look at in this case is, network adoption or use. Where is it actually being used? So for quant, now keep in mind, the rest of this down here is going to be a hypothetical example, okay? Some of it's true, some of it's not, but it's to prove a point, right? So network adoption or use. So quant's going after big boys, right? Central banks, entire economies like Amazon, blockchain to blockchain, so interoperability, and also maps, right? What's built on top of quant, okay? The service. And so in my opinion, quant has a fantastic target market with tons of potential. Let's face it, this is a huge market. There's just the whole world basically, right? And so that's good. Like, let's say the whole world, decides to use quant. Well, we have to now look at how these applications or how these businesses are going to actually need to use quant. What do they have to actually acquire the QNT token for, okay? And so we've got to look at the mechanisms to absorb, get the token out of circulation. How? Well, transaction fees, licensing fees, gateway creation, for example, to like bond QNT for a period of time, or just bond them for applications, right? To establish an application on quant, you have to use the QNT token and take it out of circulation until you have the business, right? If you want to get rid of the business, cool, you just unbond your tokens, whatever, right? Ultimately, in my opinion, like, these are actually true. I must say, these are actually true, okay? I don't know about the transaction fee itself, but it does have a transaction fee, right? So in my opinion, quant has amazing mechanisms to remove the tokens from supply. Again, we're just looking at how it can be removed from supply at this stage, either keywords temporarily or permanently. 2 different things. We're going to look at this in a second. Now, these mechanisms are more than adequate for absorbing demand in many different ways at many different levels. So we're not just looking for one thing, right? If your network, for example, only had a transaction fee, maybe it's fine for that. Maybe it can get away with just that. But ideally, we're looking for multiple things here. We're looking for licensing fees, just different ways the token can be taken out of circulation, right? And so this is where the really important part comes in. So once you've taken the token out of circulation, what are we trying to do now? Where is the actual token going? It doesn't just like get taken out of circulation and go to like some fairyland. It's got to go somewhere. And this is important because, again, is it temporarily taken out of circulation or is it permanently? And what I mean by that is, for example, is it burned? This is permanent, right? It's forever out of circulation. So burning is the best type of demand. It removes the tokens permanently. And obviously keep in mind, inflation can counteract this. So the whole premise of this video, again, is supply shock. Why can the demand or use from the network shoot the price up? And of course, if there is inflation, it's going to counteract the burn until eventually the usage or all those burn fees get higher than the inflation. Then it starts getting beneficial again, right? So keep that in mind, okay? The higher the transaction fees, the better, as more tokens can be consumed or destroyed. Just keep in mind, this right here is actually a healthy fee. Sometimes if it's too low, that's very, very bad, because you might need 100 or 200 or 300 times more demand to make up for the same amount of demand this type of fee would have. So if it was 0.000001, it looks cool, might be good for your bank, but it's actually not good for the network's demand, okay? Also, licensing fees in quant's case, right? So they might go to the treasury. So if a project like Amazon, for example, wants to actually use quant, they can license the product or the service. Cool. They have to, buy the service every single year. But where do those tokens go to? Where are those QNT tokens delivered to? Well, they're delivered to maybe a treasury, for example, right? So tokens can be delivered to a centrally controlled treasury or a community governed treasury, one of the two. But either way, these tokens are temporarily removed from supply because they can find themselves back into circulation. It might be in 100 years' time, it might be tomorrow, but they can at any point come back into circulation. That's not always a bad thing, because obviously the treasury helps develop the, use cases for the network or help the network grow, all right? Also, in this hypothetical case, you might have to bond QNT, again, to access to create the gateways themselves, which are then, those bonded tokens are used over time to pay for fees between the two networks, which, let's just say, again, the fees are 50% burned, okay? So again, there's different ways to do it. Bonding is a great way to temporarily move tokens from supply. It's something that Chainlink's really focusing on now in their new economic structure, because it can be very good. It doesn't mean it's permanently out, but it's the next best thing, right? And you also have, for example, bonding again. So bonding can last for a long time, like in the case of QNT, because the applications like the maps building on quant, they might want to be on quant forever. So they'll always have to keep their tokens bonded. So it's technically permanently out, not technically permanently. It can be undone at any time, of course. but should never be considered permanent, okay? So keep that in mind, guys. There's different levels to this. Ultimately, this is where the token is delivered after being used. It's the most important part of this whole process because it's where we need to actually see if the adoption will actually create a supply shock. Again, if it's out of circulation, if it's a transaction fee, and let's say the transaction fee goes into the treasury, which is then instantly put back into circulation the next day, that's freaking pretty damn pointless in my opinion, right? So we have to look if it's temporarily or permanently out of circulation and where it's come from. What are the absorption mechanisms? We need to clearly identify where they're being delivered. So again, once we've kind of found out where it's coming from, where the markets is, and it's being adequately taken out of circulation with whatever service, where is it going? How is it being removed from supply? This is what creates a supply shock. One example is, right, if Amazon wants to plug in and use Quant, right, what's it going to have to do? Well, it's going to have to purchase the QNT token. And if so, how can the QNT token be taken out of circulation? Again, that's like the 3-step process here. So we have to think about this. Another good example is, this is like, people paying people, right, to use the network. So person A paying person B, paying person C, paying person D. You can run around with this all day. Basically, can the QNT token be absorbed when transactions happen on the network, right? So what's the transaction fee? Again, how is it being taken out of supply or demand? How is it being removed? And then where is it going to, right? So does it have a 50% of it being burned? That's cool. That's permanently out. That's excellent. And the other 50% might be going to a node, right? Which is okay as well, but it does depend. We're going to go over an example with some nodes in a second with HBAR. So it makes total sense. And until recently, I had, and many others thought that, you might have a token's price moving like this, for example. And the philosophy was, right, if these tokens were slowly dripped into circulation, or it had most of the tokens in circulation, or all the tokens were in circulation, well then, if a tiny little bit of utility-driven demand, like from a big partnership with Amazon, right, Amazon starts using the network, then, well, guess what? The price is going to shoot up dramatically. But we're wrong, dead wrong. It's not whether the project has their tokens in circulation at all. It's got to do with how effectively the token is being delivered out of circulation and then for how long, all right? So it could have 100% inflation, but if it's being used by everyone and if it's extremely good, if it's being burnt, for example, those mechanisms are good, well then guess what? That's actually pretty good, right? It works out net positive for our bank accounts, okay? It's all in respect to that, not circulation or how much the tokens are in circulation, for example, right? To give you an idea on the implications or severity of getting this right, let's use Hedera as an example because we all know and love it, right? So again, Hedera processes about 1.5 billion transactions per month, which is insane. And again, let's kind of apply this, right? One, where is a token being absorbed? How is it kind of benefiting from having all these transactions? Well, obviously transaction fees. Now, where are those fees being delivered to? How are they actually being removed permanently? Where are they being delivered to? Well, guys, I hate to say it, but right now they're all being given to the governing council. They're all being given to the nodes. Now, this is going to change to 50-50 soon, but right now this isn't actually added. So it's all going to the nodes. And the interesting thing is to kind of figure out how essentially to actually work this out. You don't have to do this, but to work out the problem of how much demand is this actually, what's the end result here? Well, let's actually work it out for you people that want to know. So to kind of cut a long story short here, Hedera has a fixed fiat value in terms of like how much you have to pay per transaction, right? So it's currently set at $0.0001 for every transaction. Well, at least the general transaction types. And if they process 1.5 billion per month, pretty simple. They're making 150K per month, but that money is entirely going to the governing council nodes, all of it, right? But first, to kind of figure out how much is being taken out of circulation for a supply shock, because again, if they're being delivered to the nodes themselves, that's fine. It's not permanent, right? It's not permanently being taken out of circulation, but it is temporarily. But we have to kind of figure this out a little bit better to get peace of mind, right? So again, a long story short, we have to convert the USD into HBAR because knowing the amount of tokens removed from circulation is more important than the dollar amount actually being made. So we can just do some simple maths. It works out to be 3 million HBAR per month or 36 million HBAR per year. So overall, it's not too bad for transaction fees, and it comes out to be about 1% of the circulating supply per year at this current rate. But this will definitely change over time, of course. Now, the only issue is these HBAR tokens can, of course, find their ways back into supply eventually. So we, as investors, have to do more research into where these are going. Now, I'm not going to bother going through this. The video will go for an extra 10 minutes. But essentially, again, it's all going to the governing council members. And again, what we can essentially do here is have a look at, what type of effect it has on the supply. Is it temporary? Is it permanent? And by how much? So again, 1% per year. Now, there's pretty big implications here, right? Number one is people believing that HBAR is going to moon from a huge connection, when in reality, it's only going to temporarily impact the supply in a very small way. Again, 1% isn't too much over a whole entire 12 months. Until the governing council members decide to sell their tokens, they are effectively out of circulation. However, all these tokens might find their way back into circulation because the governing council members, these guys down here holding the nodes, they have a term, right? So when their term ends, they got to get off, and therefore they can sell their tokens essentially, right? They are still third parties, and they still have the ability to just do that at a moment's notice. And one other thing I want to say is this is a screenshot here from the HBAR Explorer themselves. Once these nodes reach the max over here, this maximum level, it pretty much means it's not advantageous for them to pretty much bond their tokens to their node anymore. So anything made past here, they can pretty much just cash out and sell. So keep that in mind. This is also effectively centralizing the network until Hedera decides to add community nodes and or starts to distribute them to the treasury like they intended to way back over here. And this obviously doesn't include Hedera's other ways of absorbing demand through their token, but it's the most common. So Hedera's most common way of making money is through transaction fees, right? But you have a project like Chainlink. There's right now, again, they're upgrading to incorporate better staking and bonding mechanisms. There's will obviously be staking and bonding as well, right? Where does this lead us? Well, all in all, we have to identify this way before we pull the trigger to invest, because if we don't, there is definitely a good chance that we're going to wait for something that never actually happens. At the end of the day, we will just be holding a utility token. Even if we have a massive partnership from Amazon, Google, Microsoft, it's never going to actually see the benefit of actually having those connections and actually them using the network. So again, we pretty much end up holding a utility token, and therefore we end up selling at probably even a loss. So again, I don't want you to underestimate the power of what we just went through. Everyone should be doing it. Again, follow those 3 steps, those processes we went through in the first quant example, and you should be just fine. If you want help, of course, I've got a one-on-one call consult. You guys can call me up and we can talk for an hour about anything you'd like, including this. So of course you don't have to if you don't want to, but it's definitely there if you need it. Okay guys, thanks so much for watching the whole way through. Really do hope you have a great day. Subscribe for more daily content, and of course, like the video if you have enjoyed. Talk to you all soon. Take care. Bye.